Hello, welcome. It's Megan over at the Math Workshop. Today I am channeling Elsa from Frozen, thanks to my teenage daughter. We're going to look at another math routine. Our math routine that we're going to look at today is counting around the room. Have you heard of this one before? It is honestly one of our favorites. It's a math routine that can be used with kindergarten, really up through adults. So we could use this in high school as well. Let's take a look at it. So in the math routine, counting around the room, as mentioned, it's a math routine. So you could do it at the beginning of math class. You could wrap up math class with it. You want to keep it short and sweet, 5 to 15 minutes. Students are going to be counting aloud one at a time. This reinforces number recognition, counting sequences, and mathematical concepts. It can be so easily adapted for, again, a kindergarten classroom up through high school. Students could be counting by ones, twos, threes, fours, fives, tens, 20s, 50s, 100s, whatever. So whole numbers. You could be tying it with multiplication, with multiples. We could be skip counting by sixes, by sevens. Students could be asked to count by fractions. Let's count by fourths. Let's count by sixths. Let's count by tenths. They could be counting by decimals. They could be counting by integers, and they could be counting forward or backward. So you can change the starting point for the counting sequence. So for example, if we count backwards starting at 100, and again, all of us in the room are going to say a number, what number do you think we'll land on? You're going to purposefully, oh, this part's so important. You're going to record what students say, the numbers they say, in a way that highlights the key patterns. So we have to think to ourselves first as educators, okay, how am I going to record this? Maybe on a piece of scratch paper before I even do the counting around the room with the students. I might just jot down different ways I could record it. And so I notice which way is going to highlight what the most, what I really want my kids to see. You can consider using manipulatives, especially for younger students, or possibly a number line or other tools. First, you're always going to ask your students to make a prediction, and we'll have a question slide in just a moment. You want to stop about halfway around the counting and pause and ask students if they want to adjust their estimate and why, or why not. And you do want to have students in some kind of a circle, whether it's seated on a rug or maybe seated in chairs, or they could be standing in a line or in a circle. So you really want them to be able to visually see how many counts this is going to be. It doesn't play out so well if students are seated at their desk. And again, this is a math routine, so it's going to be short and sweet. So you're not asking them to be seated in a circle on the rug or standing in a line for a really long time. It's short and sweet. What are the benefits of counting around the room? Well, it reinforces number sense, it enhances active learning, promotes collaboration, provides opportunities for discussion, and offers a fun way, an engaging way to learn. So here's the process. Okay, first, you're going to ask, and I recommend you post your question. So wherever you want to put it on your whiteboard, your interactive board, chart paper, wherever you're going to be doing your recording. And maybe your question might be like the example on the slide. If we count around the room, and what we mean by that is around our group, everyone's going to count once, by twos, and we're starting at 0. So you always need to share what are you going to count by and where are you starting. And you probably want to count forward the first couple times, let kids get used to it. But then you can spice it up and go backwards once they've kind of gotten the routine. And you're asking, what number do you think we will land on? So they're going to be making an estimate or a prediction. You're going to give students a gift of silence for individual think time. So probably going to be doing some calculating. You want to invite students to turn and talk with a partner, to share and to listen. And that is a strategic, has a strategic purpose. You want to do that so students have a chance to check in with a partner first. And what they're probably doing is kind of seeing, was my guess reasonable? What is my partner thinking? Then after you allow students to share with a partner, you want to invite those students that are comfortable to share their predictions aloud. You want to record them near where you had your question. I wouldn't put names with it. That's really, we don't really, it's not about like, let's remember who said what. This is just, let's just get a collection of the estimates. For those of you that feel comfortable. And again, we don't need to have everybody's estimate unless they want to. And maybe what you could do to cut down the time on this, instead of writing 20 estimates on the board, is if a student says, well, my estimate is we're going to land on 20 or whatever, then you can just quickly say, oh, give me a thumbs up if that was, or whatever symbol you want. This is the me too symbol for I agree in sign language. You could use that, or a thumbs up, whatever you want to say, if that was the number you were thinking too. And then you're just looking around to see who thought that number, because you don't want to spend the whole time just recording their estimates. So then you want to have the first student begin counting. And you're going to be recording, so your students can't go too fast because you're going to be recording while they're counting. And I want you to stop about halfway. It doesn't have to be exactly, but just kind of eyeballing to yourself. Stop about halfway around the room, pause, and ask students if anyone wants to readjust or adjust their estimate and why. And if there are some students that are, yeah, Miss Brewer, I want to change my guess from this to that, you just gently cross it out and write their new estimate. Again, no big deal. And you might say, why? Why do you want to change it? Then you're going to continue on with the counting and the recording. And again, this is the biggest part of this routine. Decide beforehand the best way you think it is to record their numbers, to highlight what you want students to notice. So let's look at an example of the class is counting around the room by tens, starting at 26. I'm going to show you an example right now. Oops, scratch that. It's my next slide. Sorry about that. So here are the questions to ask. We'll get to that in a moment. Sorry about that. Here are the questions to ask. And you could have these posted for yourself so you remember. These are the really good questions. What number do you predict we will land on and why? What number will the person say who is halfway around the circle? What might we do if we get stuck? This is an important one because you might have some tools around the room, like if you're in kindergarten, maybe there's a number path that students could look at, or if you're in third grade and maybe they're counting by multiples of 7, maybe you have a 100 chart or a multiplication table posted somewhere in the room. So you want to help those students out that might have a little bit of difficulty by just, preemptively, well, what could we do if we got stuck? And another good question, and this is a different question, where might we get stuck? Okay. Does anyone want to readjust their estimate? If so, why? Again, you ask that one in the middle of the routine. And here's another good one. Do you think we will say the number blank today? Why or why not? So for example, if we're counting around the room by ones and we're starting at 1, maybe it's a first grade class or kindergarten class, you might ask, do you think we're going to get to the number 100 today? And based on what your students tell you, yes or no, that's going to tell you a lot about where they are in their thinking about numbers and sequence. All right, now let's get to the one that I preemptively talked about. This class is counting around the room by tens, starting at 26. You see that? What is being highlighted in the skip counting pattern that shows up in the way the teacher is recording? Isn't it interesting how the sixes, because they're all lined up in the ones place, they're just jumping out at us, aren't they? And noticing in the tens column, it's just going up by one digit each time because our tens are going up plus 10, plus 10. But we're seeing in the tens place an increase of one. So this teacher was strategically thinking, how am I going to record this to highlight what I want to be highlighted? Let's look at another example. So here's another example, and there's the question posted. If we want to count around the room by twos, starting at 0, where will we land? And you see the students' estimates again up in the corner. It's not a big deal. We just take a couple. And again, we just, maybe the first child said 50, and we just say, did anybody else think 50? Give me a me too symbol. And we're just quickly looking around. Again, we don't spend too much time there, but we do want our students thinking, and they're starting to do some reasoning. So that's why we do the estimate. Then notice how we recorded counting around the room by twos. What do you notice? Are those ones popping out again? How you see the column of the two in the ones place, then the fours in the one place, then the sixes in the one place, and the eights in the one place. So that was looking down the columns. When we're looking across in the rows, do you see that 24680, 24680, 24680, and so on? And what are you seeing in the tens place? So again, just taking a few moments before you actually facilitate the math routine of counting around the room to think about, how shall I record this? And you give it a try. And, if you think later, oh, what would have been better to do it that way? It's okay. Try it another day and record it another way. It's not going to hurt the kids, but it's just that intentionality of thinking about beforehand, how could I record this to really highlight the patterns? Here's another example. If we count around the room by fourths, starting at 0, where will we land? So again, the estimates were up in the corner. Now this one's a little bit different. You probably noticed the example before we recorded across was the ordering. And of course, the students would have been watching the teacher do that. You're seeing the end effect. In this example that we're looking at now, the teacher recorded columns. And again, the students would have been watching. So what is highlighted based on how the teacher recorded counting by fourths? Did you notice that each column is 4/4? Each column is 4/4. Did you notice that? So that was intentional. Did you notice that some students said the number as a mixed number and others did not? And that will really happen. So, for example, up here where it says 5/4, that child could have said 1 1/4, but they chose to say 5/4. Both are correct. For example, down in the first column, the last number, that child said 1. That child could have said 4/4. They're both correct. So look at all the interesting patterns and observations and discussions we can have about our fourths. A teacher could also record these numbers on a long number line. I think that would be a fantastic tool as well. So I would spice it up because both recording it this way and on a number line are going to highlight different aspects, and they're both good. So I would the next time maybe we're going to count by fifths, maybe I would do a long number line. So what if a student makes a mistake? Because it's going to happen, you know it. If a student makes a mistake while counting around the room, we believe it's so important to handle it constructively to encourage learning and to avoid discouraging the student. So mistakes are going to happen. It's okay. And we believe in the growth mindset, the research that cites that when we make mistakes, actually there's synapses and connections going on in our brain, and we're actually growing those connections and growing our brain. So we empower our students and share that information with them. There's nothing shameful about a mistake. So some tips. You could just record the incorrect number. Don't leave it there forever, but we pause and we allow a little bit of time for perhaps the student in the room to catch the mistake, because sometimes students will. Maybe nobody catches the mistake. Then what could happen is then the numbering is going to get off, because unless, a student picks up on it. So it might be a time to pause. Don't only do this though, this technique I'm going to share with you. Don't only do it when students make mistakes, because then their kids are going to pick up on this. But put in pauses even when things are going smoothly, and just say something like, "Hey, let's pause for a minute. How's our list looking? Let's look over it with really discerning eyes. Let's be detectives for a minute. How's our list going?" And it's just kind of a time to check in. Give students an opportunity to find that mistake without, calling out, "Hey, there's a mistake." Does that make sense? Because if we do leave it, then often the list is going to get really convoluted. So we could use that as a learning opportunity and have a convoluted list and leave it there and go, I think we should try this again. Let's see. And put the correct list next to it, when they do it again, and hopefully maybe even change the order of the students so that there's a greater chance that that same mistake won't be made. Does that make sense? And then that can be a learning opportunity. Have students compare the two lists and see, well, what happened? That's really problem solving. What happened? Let's compare our lists, compare and contrast. Right. So do be thinking about that. Sometimes that might happen. And there's nothing wrong with occasionally doing counting around the room in some small groups or differentiated groups, because if your class is like most classes, the skill levels of where students are in their thinking today might be different than other students. So doing some small group counting around the room can really help for students that need it. All right. Well, we hope this math workshop video all about counting around the room was helpful to you in understanding this math routine and how it's beneficial to helping us learn about our students' mathematical thinking and in supporting our mathematicians to share and learn from each other. Feel free to check out more of our math routines. We have many on our website, themathworkshop.net, or on our YouTube channel. We're always updating the channel with new videos about all sorts of things from the mathematics classroom. We thank you for your support and your time. And if no one has told you this week, thank you for all that you do.